the errors that are inherent in Judaism and Christianity. So you'll see references in the Quran that are critical, for example, Christianity, critical of the idea of the Trinity and the idea of the crucifixion. These are outright criticized and it's said in the Quran that these are not, that this is not true, that this is false, this is not true religion. But on the other hand, you see texts like the one that we read that said that there should be no compulsion in religion as long as you're a monotheist, and that Judaism and Christianity and Sabaeanism and other forms of monotheism are acceptable, and you will find a place in the world to come. So that kind of demonstrates, I think, that tension between establishment religions and new religions, and how context, historical contexts, affect the way religions look at one another. Having said that, and with this I'm going to really end here, I have for you a couple of more pages of text. And these texts are designed to demonstrate some of the similarities between Islam and Judaism. Now, Islam is not Judaism, Judaism is not Islam. These are separate religions. They have somewhat different theologies, different ritual expectations, different behavioral expectations in terms of religious behavior. But there's a profound amount of similarity between them as well. And so you'll see here, and I use Hebrew and Arabic and citations from the Quran to show how the 5 pillars of Islam, which are the primary, central, core behavioral and belief aspects of Islam, are in many ways similar to Judaism. Let me just go over this by giving you some of the terms that are used. The 5 pillars of Islam are faith, that is believing in a singular God, one God, the requirement of prayer, required giving of tzedakah, or something similar to tzedakah, giving of resources to help the poor, that's required, not charity, but is required giving, fasting, which is required, and pilgrimage. If we just go from the back to the front, the word for pilgrimage is hajj. Make the hajj. It's the same word as the Hebrew word hag, as in Chag Sameach, right? Happy holidays. And in the Bible, the true Chagim, the 3 real festivals that are designated as Chag in the Bible, are pilgrimage festivals, pilgrimage to Jerusalem. Fasting in Islam is called Saum. How do we say fasting in Hebrew? Tzom. It's actually the same word. Now, in the very early period of Islam, there was a special fast on the 10th day of the 7th month, and it was a 24-hour fast, which is really exactly equal to the Yom Kippur fast in Judaism. That was changed, and there's some controversy and difference of opinion as to why that was changed already at the time of Mohammad, through revelation of God that said that you don't have to fast on that day. Instead, you fast for 30 days during the month of Ramadan, but during daylight hours instead of 24-hour fast. Required giving of goods to help the poor, giving of alms, if you will, is called in Arabic zakat, which is equivalent to the Hebrew word zechut. It means merit. It's kind of a merit of giving. The term that's used in the Quran more often than zakat for something that is not understood as required but is also a kind of giving of alms to the poor is called sadaqah. I'm sure that rings a bell with some of you who have a Jewish background and understand that sadaqah, by the way, and if you're a Jew from Iran or from Iraq or from Egypt and you want to say tzedakah, you say sadaqah. It's the same, essentially the same word. And then prayer, similar to the Jewish requirement of prayer, except the Muslim requirement is prayer 5 times a day rather than 3 times a day. But don't get nervous, it's shorter than the Jewish prayers. It's similar to a Hebrew term, tzlota. It's an Aramaic term, it's a Jewish term. And then faith in one God is called in Arabic iman, which is the same word as the Hebrew word emunah, of faith. And that requirement is to understand that there is only one God and that Muhammad is his prophet. So there's a lot in common. There are also many differences, and as Jews, it's important for us to understand that, let me see, where do I begin with this? Let me start from our own context. The Hebrew Bible is full of tremendous numbers of texts that teach us many things. They teach us to aspire for a time when people will treat each other with great respect and live together in peace. There are also texts in the Hebrew Bible that aspire to the absolute destruction of entire peoples. There are tremendous violent texts in the Hebrew Bible. We call them texts of terror. We don't resonate with those texts. They aren't texts that have meaning for us much today. But they did, because if they didn't, they wouldn't be there. When we are living in a reasonable time, we are not feeling terribly stressed, we're not feeling terribly angry, we don't feel rage against some terrible enemy, we tend to resonate with the texts that are nice texts, that are good texts, that speak to our mood. But if you feel that you are being persecuted, and you are indeed being persecuted, you resonate with the texts of revenge and the texts that express the kind of anger that you're feeling at the moment. And in our Jewish history, we have resonated with different sets of texts in our religious tradition that have really been based on our historical circumstances. Now, in our history, we haven't had the ability, at least for the last 2,000 years until just recently, to really engage in violent acts as a community. So we would resonate with the texts of rage, and that would be the end of it. But there were periods of time in which we resonated with these texts and we engaged in divinely authorized holy war in our tradition as well. That tradition ended because it failed. That is, Jews were involved in holy war activities against enemies until the end of the Bar Kokhba rebellion, when those tactics were so dangerous that they were in danger of destroying the Jewish people entirely. That is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the two great rebellions that were started against Rome. One resulted in the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem in the year 70, and the other one resulted in making Judea Judenrein, really. It was forbidden for Jews to be established, really, in the land of Israel, except up in the very northern part of Galilee, as a result of the failed rebellions against the Roman Empire. And hundreds of thousands of people, according to our texts, were killed. After that, we didn't engage in holy war. We had no more armies. We had no more political system. Now that we have established a polity, a Jewish polity in Israel, we are engaging in war, defined by us as wars of defense. Some communities in the Jewish world are kind of re-envisioning our engagement in war as divinely authorized and divinely sanctioned. It's a kind of revival of holy war ideas that is found in some communities in Israel and in the United States as well today. But that's still a very small minority. In the Muslim world, the Quran includes texts that are extremely violent, similarly to the texts that we have in the Hebrew Bible, and texts that aspire to a world of peace in which people live together in contentment. And in the Muslim world today, and I'm trying to give you a highly politicized position, I'm not really trying, but this is the way it's sounding to me. In the Muslim world today, as Muslims feel beleaguered and oppressed by what is defined by them as Western exploitation, what have you, they tend to resonate with the texts of rage and